Om Shanti. Welcome to the session of interview with the Raj Yogi. And our topic is freedom and self-mastery. As always, we're going to start with reflection. When we say seated comfortably, it is not just referring to the body, but actually to the self. I, the thinker, the observer, the one expressing through this body. Am I seated comfortably? Here, behind the forehead, that place from where thoughts, ideas, dreams, and hopes originate. That's where I am seated, consciousness. And am I comfortable? Is anything pulling on the heart, drawing my attention away from this moment, draining my energy, creating tension? If any of those experiences are happening, it's just a sign that I am not truly free, not able to let go. I imagine my hand of the mind is closed tight around a scene or situation of the past, or maybe a concern of the future, constantly thinking about it. It's not so much that the scene or situation needs to go away, but the hand of my mind needs to let go, become free. And so I experience the fingers of the mind opening, having that mastery, that power to release. The mind opening, expanding, releasing, being fully present. And the moment my mind opens, the fingers uncurl, let go. It creates space. Space for a sense of calm, a wave of peace to wash into the mind. This skill, this art, this mastery of knowing how to use this hand of the mind, how to let go, and how to receive peace. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Good evening. Welcome to those who joined with us this evening. So today's topic is freedom and self-mastery. It's very much connected to our topic from the last four to six sessions ago, which is about self-integrity. We're really learning to understand what detachment means. And I know that Judy has shared quite a few occasions, that detachment is really this aspect of freedom, or true nature. So just listening to the commentary, I was thinking actually about this aspect of power. That sounds like power is required. And what are your thoughts in terms of how sometimes maybe even what I'm trying to actually let go, what is happening that I'm not able to? What is this lack of power?
Before I answer, I'm just going to check in that those on Instagram can hear okay. If you can just give us a note, a signal, a message that the volume is okay, you can hear. I'm hoping you heard us ask that question. So let us know if it's okay. We'll carry on with the hope that you can hear. So in terms of power, spiritually, because there's this idea of physical power, which is so much about controlling and holding and making things happen through, sometimes it seems a lot of force, brute force, this physical strength. But spiritual power is almost the exact opposite. The idea that things happen through letting go. And so the power that I'm looking for in spirituality is the power of understanding. So this can help a great deal in letting go. But also what we call the power of purity. A huge amount of this lack of power is through wanting things to happen a certain way. So I'm actually a bit discontent. I want certain things to happen, and I'm holding very tight to expectations, to outcomes, because I'm not actually full inside. So this power of fullness, this power of contentment, this power of purity is a wonderful power in terms of allowing things that are beneficial to happen.
Where does one draw the line in terms of, because sometimes I hear that word contentment and I feel it means to be passive, to be apathetic. You don't actually have to engage, and things don't have to actually get done.
It was interesting. I was chatting the other day with a soul about, oddly enough, track stars, athletics, sprinters, world-class sprinters. And we're talking about one in particular. And I really always enjoyed, they retired, enjoyed watching this athlete because they always won, they were the fastest. But whenever I watch them sprint, they seem so relaxed. And I noticed that those around the athlete, if you were watching all 8 of them come down the track, because they're the fastest, they'd always be placed in the center lane. And the media would catch all of them, and you could see the runners around them trying to catch this one in the lead, and they would actually tighten up and try so hard and so laboring. You'd see the tension on their face. And the harder they tried, the less they could speed up or catch this athlete. And this athlete looked so relaxed and yet was going so quickly. And I think it's really an image of this balance that contentment makes possible, where it's actually that forcing, that wanting, that really kind of laboring that shuts down the capacities of the soul. It's far from, inertia or not caring or doing nothing, apathy. It's actually what will unlock. We're saying freedom and self-mastery. It unlocks the potential or the power of the soul. I can actually do more with less effort when there is contentment. When there's that forcing, that controlling, that tension, I'm actually limiting the capacities of the self.
So interesting you share that, because actually both of us were listening to a recent interview, and it was on the topic of Raja Yoga. And it's about this aspect, as we often hear and learn in this course. You do need to make effort. You need to make effort to practice experiencing yourself to be a soul. You need to make effort to to really connect to what really matters. So when you were sharing about this aspect, I was reminded about effort, because it's not meant to be laboring.
Yeah, it's such an interesting connection between that has developed, and this is a huge part of being re-educated with spirituality, is that we've sort of connected words or experiences that ideally don't go together. And one of them is effort and laboring. So the moment you say effort, I know that we instinctively think of labor, hard work. We already start to feel tired when we hear the word effort. And this idea of effort and freedom being connected, but I've experienced it so often in physical endeavors that it's this line, this very beautiful, subtle balance that we want to find between making effort, putting some action expression out there, but without any tension. And I remember once speaking with a synchronized swimmer. So these are the ones that do these beautiful choreography in the water. And they were trying to explain a very specific exercise they do in the water that captures this balance. They have to do something in the water where it's a cross position, so their arms are extended from their shoulder and their body. So their body looks like a cross, the arms and the body. And what they have to do is move between being upright in the water and then laying in the water on the surface. They move, so their legs drop and then they float up, if that makes sense, if you can imagine that. And they were explaining it's such a subtle balance that if they try too hard, if they're not activating in the right way, they will never be able to move between these two positions. And I really enjoyed listening to them because they were capturing this subtle balance of, yes, I am doing something, but it's without tension. Now, this is captured in the Gita, where over and over there is a lesson of you must act, but you must not be affected, if you will, by the consequences of the action. You cannot be attached to the consequence. So basically, it's well, what's driving me as I act, and we're so used to such force, desires, expectations, outcome. So because of that, labor has been connected to effort. But the freedom, that I'm content, whatever's happening, I'm just enjoying the expression. So love is driving it. Then it becomes, so we say, where there is love, there is no labor. Still making effort, but it's not driven by the desire, by the begging, by the outcome, the expectation.
Love in the expression and enjoying the expression.
Mm-hmm.
When you were sharing, I was thinking about really think about it, it takes effort to do all sorts of things. You drive the car, is it
Mm-hmm.
laborious? So it seems like in spirituality, and this happens all the time, when it comes to spirituality, everything seems to kind of go sideways,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting.
Well, we've realized in spirituality that everything had gone
Yeah.
sideways, and we're trying to put it back on the road.
Yeah.
But I know for me, because we live in a world now where we're multitasking, souls are really trained to do many things within a certain amount of time. And I know they can feel overwhelmed and exhausted and just want to do nothing, just throw the whole thing away. And I know if ever those feelings come to me, what enables that self-mastery, that capacity to happen, is I do connect with love. That, okay, this is something that I love to do. It doesn't matter. It's really like becoming a child again, when we would color or whatever the case, draw, and we didn't care what it looked like or, what the outcome. We just enjoyed the expression of the moment. So that gives incredible energy, and again, you can do so much more.
When you share that, can you sort of carry that over to all sorts of scenes and situations in terms of love? Because this is a situation when you're talking about there's, maybe it's a project, and would you like to do that kind of,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, I wouldn't call it work or task or so forth, but there's an attitude with it. But can you carry that over, this aspect of love, when it comes to
Yeah.
every scene and situation?
Absolutely. You use the example of the car. I'm going to put fuel in the car and drive it to all sorts of different destinations. The car doesn't really care where you're going or for what purpose. It's just got the fuel. Similarly, if I have this fuel of pure love, then it will apply. So sometimes, I may have to go visit someone, and thoughts might come, maybe of a past incident or what's going to be involved. It might feel like it's a challenging interaction. But the moment I connect with that fuel of pure love, then it changes. I'm very open. I let go of the past scenes. I don't worry about this might happen or that might happen. There's just this pure love, and just letting that drive me, and arriving at the interaction or driving at the project, or just getting up in the morning. If there's that fuel of pure love, it's freedom, because I'm not attaching to all of those other things that used to drive me, the worries, the concerns, the desires. I'm not letting those drive me, but just the pure love.
You may have to clarify, what do you mean by pure love?
I really think it's the result of spiritual study. I've been thinking about this the last few days, the treasure of a pure heart. Even this morning, we had a beautiful meeting event this morning, and I remember in the eyes of the one who was guiding the event, I just saw a pure heart. And it really is a culmination of someone who has really gone through the spiritual journey. That they just have a pure heart. There's no desires. Purity, completely content, very full, a deep, deep experience of the self and the value, the capacity, the worth, the truth of the self is really fully vibrant. This creates a pure heart. We say the heart, or at least for me, the heart is the jewel box, the container. It has a memory of our own greatness, our authentic self. And so when we say pure heart, it's because I now have the one thing that I was trying to get through everything else, which is the value of the self, because I've gotten it. It's kind of ironic when we think about it. We're trying to get the value of the self from everywhere but the self.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can get it from the self, have an experience of my own value, my own worth, the heart becomes pure. I'm so just at peace, enjoying the wonder of the self. the heart becomes pure. It's so full. It's not taking anymore. It's not expecting anymore. It's not comparing anymore. It's liberated from all of those, freed. And so that unlocks pure love.
So it's really about value of the self first. Because it's so interesting you share that, because I think sometimes when we hear love, this is again about spirituality going sideways, and we think it's sort of something you have to muster from somewhere inside to something out there, even if you don't have it in you. And I remember someone had, at one point in time, had confided in me. In the middle of work, she really needed to, she just needed someone to talk to, and she was sharing that I feel like I'm suffocating here at work because I have to put on a mask and look like I'm on and try to be something that I can't feel right now. And when we hear love, sometimes it feels that we're not really being driven from the right place.
Spirituality really begins by focusing on that first relationship, which is with the self. If my concepts of love don't start there, with just a love for the self, we really have to fall in love with ourselves again for the right reasons. And that's what the spiritual journey allows when we say, you are a soul. It's really basically saying, fall in love with yourself again for the right reasons. So that's the first relationship we look at. Otherwise, yes, without that, what will the other relationships be but a lot of work? Trying to gather something with really the heart still closed. That's the first. And the second, of course, is a loving relationship with God, because it's wonderful to fall in love with yourself, but for such a long time of the heart, if you will, being a little bit abused, it needs to be healed, and that's God's speciality. So that relationship comes second. Once that's done, fallen in love with the self, the heart completely healed, then the rest happens really naturally.
So this relationship with the self, that's a big one. I think that's one that many find is quite terrifying.
It's so fascinating whenever we talk about spirituality or meditation or going inside. Yeah, souls say, I'm afraid to go in there. And again, how things are so opposite. We're really just skimming the surface. And yes, if I look at the surface of a stormy sea, it does look frightening. Just so much upheaval. So that can be a bit overwhelming. But what we're trying to do is go deep, and it's very beautiful in the depth. So it's not frightening to go in there. What's frightening is actually to not go in there, to just stay on the surface is frightening.
So connecting to this aspect of self-mastery, I do feel that there are sort of two layers of self-mastery. That there is just the self-mastery to be able to experience something like that, to have that the capacity to let go. But of course, then there's a second layer, which perhaps maybe we'll address next week, is what happens. There's the mastery to be able to let go, to have that pure love. But then there's the mastery that seems to unfold when you're actually in that state of letting go. Unless that's what my feeling feels like. And in terms of this aspect of sharing about to be able to have this sense of value with myself, what does that take? Because it feels like it's an art as well. It's a mastery as well on its own.
Spirituality tells us that we all actually have this capacity, this art, this skill, that we're really just awakening it. So I think it might take a couple of things. I always feel the first one is a readiness, that it's my time to awaken that art, that I've pretty much gone down the journey of not connecting with the self as far as I can, and now I'm ready for the return journey, and that's separate for each soul when it's their time. And also I think it takes patience, because there will be a lot, oddly enough, a lot of resistance. Part of having fallen out of love with ourselves is we've become a little self-destructive, a little self-sabotaging. So these odd little dynamics are going to erupt inside, and I'm going to have to be patient and understanding about them. So the more I can equip myself with wisdom about what this reunion with the self is going to look like, I think the better I will do. So the spiritual study needs to be quite robust in providing the understanding of what that resistance, that opposition will look like, so I'm not deceived. We heard a phrase the other day and I enjoyed it so much. Yes, resistance is going to come. Carry on anyways. That suggests that I am aware of what it's going to look like and not being deceived. I remember once it was a story, and towards the end of the story, the main character was told, okay, so as you're moving along, this is going to come up, this is going to appear, this is going to happen, carry on anyways. And it was some pretty distracting or, kind of dramatic things that they were saying would happen, but it's like, carry on anyways. And sure enough, as they got to that point in the journey, these things that they had been told would emerge, and they actually remembered, oh yes, they said this would happen. Yes, it looks pretty frightening, but I'm just going to keep going. And it's as if it became, just a paper tiger. It was nothing. So that's really, we really do try to have cultivate a lot of understanding so that we're not deceived as we move along.
Well, thank you, Judy. Perhaps maybe you'll take us into an experience and help us to sort of see, is it a certain way I need to be thinking? Because you talk about understanding, maybe we think that I'm supposed to be able to not necessarily have thoughts, but be able to let go so quickly, but don't realize there might be just a frame of a way I need to be not processing, but thinking inside how I perceive things.
I bring into my mind's eye the image of a miner going deep into the earth, looking for treasures, going into that darkness, that depth. And they always have that special helmet they wear that has the light. That light is always on as they go into the depths. So they're never in the darkness. It's always lighting the way, showing them what's to come. On the spiritual journey, in some ways it's the same. I'm going into the depths of the self, through the layers of my own journey through time, to reconnect with the treasure, the beauty, the intrinsic goodness of the self. I have deep, unshakable faith, belief in the self. But I need to have that light always shining, spiritual wisdom. Things will come up along the way. Doubts, fears, regrets, mistakes, obstacles, challenges, sometimes feeling overwhelmed. But there's always that light in my awareness. I know I am a soul. I know I am intrinsically good. In my heart, seeking kindness, love, compassion, because I know what these experiences feel like. These experiences are within me. in my capacity. They're in my heart. Every day I want to really energize that light. Spend time creating that faith in the self. So I go deep on the journey, and that light of self-belief is always shining. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Judy. Well, thank you for those who are joining with us this evening. We will continue with part 2 next week. So we are moving into December, so perhaps you can let us know. This is an easy one because it's the same stuff. What's coming up in December? Om Shanti.
So I will be completely honest with you. The light has not fully shown us what December will look like, so we're still developing the schedule, but the regular programs will continue. So drop-in meditation Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays. Saturday afternoon, we have Soul Cafe on Zoom. So please email us if you have interest in any of those. I believe there is a Hindi course, Raj Yoga course, so that's on our website. And we do hope to have at least one special program over the festive season, hopefully a New Year's Eve program for you, so at least one, and that we will certainly post as soon as we have confirmed the details. But for now, this class, this session, interview with the Raj Yogi will definitely continue on Tuesdays as usual. Thank you for joining. Om Shanti.